A forest that doesn't listen to what you say, but listens to what your heart is thinking. A forest where the trees can literally push you out if you are wicked. Olorishado was taken to the edge of life and death this weekend. Was she a villain or was she a slave to a power beyond her control? The answer will make you cry. The Golden King has finally reached his breaking point. The palace in the land of the Golden Crown was shaking, and the only way to find the truth was to take Olorishado to the sacred forest of judgment. If she survives, she is innocent. If the forest rejects her, that is the end. Will she come out alive? A short prayer for you. May every hidden trap set to ruin your reputation be destroyed, and may the truth always speak for you in your hour of need. Amen. A note on our tradition. Out of the deep respect we have for our culture, we will be using fictional names for certain sacred rituals and locations. But as we go on, you will understand exactly what they represent. The atmosphere in the land of the Golden Crown over the weekend was heavy. You could almost cut the tension with a knife. My crown list friends and families, I have gathered information that is so deep I was almost vibrating while typing this. The palace we all know and love has changed forever. There is a shift in the spirit and things will never be the same again. The Golden King, a man known for his lion heart and his patience, was pushed to a wall. You know how it is when a man loves too much and that love is used against him. The saga involving Olorishado had reached a boiling point. The accusations of treason, the disrespect and the constant wahala in the palace had become a mountain that no one could climb anymore. The Golden King was troubled. He didn't want to be the judge, the jury, and the executioner. He didn't want the world to look at him tomorrow and say he was a cruel man. So he did something heavy. He invited the Golden Crown elders. These are not just men. They are the keepers of the land. When they arrived, everything was laid bare. Every secret, every whisper, every act of rebellion from Olorishado was put on the table. The elders looked at the king and asked, what should be done to a wife who brings shame to the crown? The Golden King, with tears in his soul, looked at them and said he wanted justice and fairness. He didn't want to act out of anger. He told the elders to take the matter over. He said his heart was too involved to be fair. It was at this moment that the suggestion of the secret forest of judgment came up. Now, let me tell you about this forest. In the land of the Golden Crown, when a matter is too heavy for human mouth to settle, they take it to the forest where truth lives. They call it the place where the ground speaks. This is not a place for curiosity or pride. It is a place of finality. If you enter that forest and you are guilty of deliberate wickedness, the forest will reject you. People have gone there and come out foaming at the mouth, or they just collapse and never wake up. The elders suggested that Olorishado must be taken there. They needed to know if she was doing these things because she is naturally evil, or if there was a spiritual force, a heavy spell controlling her. This was a life and death gamble. If Olorishado's family agreed, it meant they were ready for whatever the outcome would be. If she died in there, no one would be held responsible. To everyone's shock, Olorishado did not argue. She didn't try to negotiate. She just kept crying, looking like someone who was lost in a different world. She looked like someone who had just woken up from a 10-year sleep and didn't know how she got there. She agreed to go. That agreement alone sent shockwaves through the palace. A guilty person usually runs from such judgment, but she walked toward it. The journey was set. This wasn't a party. It was a funeral procession for the truth. They chose men of high integrity. The Golden Crown elders and even the Golden King's own brothers were part of the group. They wanted to make sure that whatever happened, the bloodline itself was a witness. No one should come tomorrow and say the result was manipulated by social media or enemies. As they approached the entrance of the forest, they met the first witness, the tree that judges the heart. My crown gives friends and families. This tree does not care about your beauty or your position. It looks at your intent. Why did you do what you did? Was it out of a wicked heart or were you forced?
Everyone held their breath as Olori Shadow stepped to have that tree. The air became cold. The birds stopped singing. This was the moment of truth. If that tree pushed her back, she would be banished instantly or worse. She took the first step, then the second. The silence was deafening. The elders were watching her feet, her eyes, her breath. Then it happened. Olori Shadow crossed the line of the tree and nothing happened. The tree did not move. The forest did not scream. It allowed her to pass. A heavy whisper started among the elders. They had been allowed in, they muttered. But the real test was still waiting inside the deep darkness of the forest where the spirits of the ancestors dwell. They were about to find out exactly what had been riding the soul of Olori Shadow all these months.
My crown guests and families, once Olori Shadow passed that first tree, the atmosphere changed completely. It wasn't just about the physical forest anymore, it was about the spiritual weight in the air. The Golden Crown elders and the brothers of the Golden King followed her closely. They were walking into a place where the leaves don't just blow in the wind, they whisper the secrets of the past. Inside this sacred ground, they don't do things like we do in the city. There are no microphones, no lawyers, and no long arguments. Everything is done through the ancient ways. They moved deeper into the thickets until they reached the spot where the final judgment takes place. Olori Shadow was in the middle, looking fragile, her eyes red from crying. She looked like a woman who was seeing the world for the first time in a very long time. The elders began the rituals. These are the parts of our culture we respect so much that we don't call them by their direct names. They asked the spirit of the land to reveal the intent. You see, in the land of the Golden Crown, action alone is not enough to condemn a person. Two people can commit the same crime, but one might do it out of a wicked soul, while the other is under a heavy spiritual command. The elders used the ancient elements to check her spirit. They were looking for something specific, a sign of resistance from the forest. Usually, if a person who has consciously plotted to destroy the Golden King enters this space, the ground would reject their footsteps. They would start to scream, or their body would start to shake uncontrollably as if they were being whipped by invisible canes. But as they performed these rituals, something else began to manifest. It wasn't the sound of a woman being punished, it was the revelation of a woman who had been in chains. The signs from the forest began to align. One by one, the indicators showed that Olori Shadow was operating under a massive spiritual eddy, a spell of total control. This wasn't just small juju to make someone like you. This was a high-level spiritual bondage designed to sit on her will, her emotions, and her judgment. The elders were shocked. They realized that for months, Olori Shadow was not the one talking. She was not the one acting. There was a force, a command from outside her own soul that was driving her to be disrespectful, to cause wahala, and to act in ways that were totally different from the woman she used to be. The forest revealed that she was like a captive in her own body. Imagine the pain of waking up and realizing you have been loosed to hurt the person you love the most. That was the energy coming from Olori Shadow. The elders confirmed that this wasn't a matter of her choosing to give bad. This was a matter of a woman who had been spiritually kidnapped. But there was one more thing the forest revealed, and this part sent shivers down the spines of the Golden Crown elders. The forest showed that the spell had actually started to break just before they arrived. That was why she was able to agree to come to the forest in the first place. If the spell was still at its full strength, the power controlling her would have made her run away or even turn violent to avoid the light of the truth. As they stood in that secret silence, the elders looked at each other. The evidence was clear. The forest had spoken, and it did not lie. Olori Shadow was guilty of the actions, yes, the words were said, the disrespect happened, but she was not the owner of those actions. She was a victim of a spiritual coup. The tension in the group began to shift from anger to a heavy kind of pity. They saw a queen who had been dragged through the mud by forces she couldn't see. But the big question remains. Now that the truth is out, what happens next? Does she just walk back into the palace and still nothing happened? Can the Golden King ever look at her the same way again, even knowing she was under a spell? The group began their journey back out of the forest. The walk back was even quieter than the walk in. The weight of the discovery was sitting on everyone's chest. They were returning to the palace with a report that would change the history of the land of the Golden Crown forever. Crown gist friends and families. The walk back from the sacred forest of judgment was like a funeral for a secret that had finally died. The Golden Crown elders, the brothers of the Golden King, and Olori Shadow walked in a single line, coming back to the world of men. But as they stepped out of the shadows of the trees, the reality of what they found began to sink in. When they arrived back at the palace, the news had already started to travel like wildfire through the inner rooms. People were peeping through windows, servants were whispering in corners, and the guards stood as stiff as statues. Everyone wanted to know, did she survive? Did the forest swallow her? Or did she come back with the mark of a liar? The Golden King was seated on his throne, his face like a stone carving. He didn't move an inch as the elders entered the room. You could feel the heat of the ancestors in the room. This was the moment the king had been waiting for, but also the moment he dreaded. The lead elder stepped forward. He didn't use big grammar or complicated words. He told the Golden King straight. The forest did not reject her. The tree did not push her. The ground did not cry out against her blood. A heavy sigh went through the hall, but the elder wasn't finished. He explained that what they saw inside was a woman who had been under a total spiritual lockdown. He called it a bondage of the mind, a power that had been sitting on her head like a heavy lead crown, forcing her to speak words that were not hers and do things that her soul hated. The Golden King was seated on his throne, his face like a stone carving. He didn't move an inch. As the elders entered the room, you could feel the heat of the ancestors in the room. This was the moment the king had been waiting for, but also the moment he dreaded. The lead elder stepped forward. He didn't use big grammar or complicated words. He told the Golden King straight. The forest did not reject her. The tree did not push her. The ground did not cry out against her blood. A heavy sigh went through the hall, but the elder wasn't finished. He explained that what they saw inside was a woman who had been under a total spiritual lockdown. He called it a bondage of the mind, a power that had been sitting on her head like a heavy lead crown, forcing her to speak words that were not hers and do things that her soul hated. The Golden King listened, his eyes fixed on Olori Shadow, who was kneeling at the far end of the hall, her head bowed to the floor. She wasn't just crying, she was shaking. It was the shaking of someone who had just been pulled out of a freezing river. Now that the eddy was broken, she was feeling the full weight of every insult she had hurled, every wile she had caused, and every heart she had broken, especially the heart of the Golden King. But my crown gist friends and families, this is where the emotion gets very deep. The Golden King is a man of great heart, yes, but he is also the symbol of the crown. Even if she was under a spell, the damage had been done. The palace had been divided. The people had seen their queen act in ways that a queen should never act. Olori Shadow didn't even try to stand up. She started to crawl on her knees. She crawled toward the Golden King, then she turned and crawled toward Queen Naomi. You know Queen Naomi, the one who has been the pillar of peace in that palace. Olori Shadow reached out to touch the feet of Queen Naomi, begging with a voice that sounded like it was coming from a broken reed. She was begging for forgiveness, not because she wanted her position back, but because she finally realized the level of the mess she had been used to create. The palace was in a state of confusion. Half of the people felt pity. They said, poor woman, she didn't know what she was doing. It was the enemies of the king that used her. But the other half was still angry. They said, spell or no spell, she allowed a crack in her wall for the lizard to enter. She should have been stronger. The Golden King finally spoke. His voice was low, but it reached every corner of the room. He said he had heard the verdict of the ancestors. He had noted that Olori Shadow was a victim. But then he said something that made the heart of everyone there skip a beat. He looked at Olori Shadow and told her that while the forest has dared her name of intent, the palace is a place of the living, and the living have memories. He made it clear that some doors, once they are closed, are very hard to open again. He didn't banish her immediately to the streets, but he didn't pull her back into his arms either. The tension moved from is she guilty to what do we do with her now? Olori Shadow began to beg everyone, the elders, the family, the staff. She was like a woman trying to pack spilled water back into a pot. It was a sight that would make you wonder about the type of spiritual wickedness that exists in this world.
My crown gist friends and families, the atmosphere in the land of the Golden Crown right now is very strange. It is like the silence after a heavy thunderstorm. The truth has been revealed by the forest, but the healing, that one is a different story entirely. Olori Shadow is currently in a state that I can only describe as a total breakdown. Now that her eyes are clear and that heavy spiritual AD has been lifted, she is seeing the wreckage of her life. They say she has been moving from one room to another, begging anyone she sees. She went back to the royal mansion and the reports say she fell at the feet of Queen Naomi again, weeping uncontrollably. She is begging the elders, the family, and even the messengers. But here is the heavy part. Even though the forest said she was under a spell, the Golden King's heart is still heavy. He is a man of honor, and the disrespect he faced was public. The word going around the palace is that the Golden King has made his position very clear. He has accepted the verdict that she was manipulated, but he also knows that the crown must be protected. The bond of trust has been shattered into a million pieces, and even the best glue in the world might not be able to put it back together. There is a deep sadness in the palace because everyone now realizes that while Olori Shadow was acting out, she was actually a prisoner in her own mind. It's a lesson to all of us that this world is deeper than what we see with our physical eyes. However, my crown gist friends and families, I have to be very honest with you as we conclude this update. Everything I have told you now, especially these final details about the secret meetings and the current mood of the Golden King, are rumors and alleged information. In this social media age, news flies faster than a bird, and while we have deep sources, you must take these final details as social media rumors. These are alleged reports coming out of the palace corridors, and they should not be taken as the final, absolute truth until the crown itself makes an official statement. We are only bringing you the whispers that are shaking the land of the Golden Crown right now. The big question remains, will the Golden King find it in his heart to fully restore a woman who was used as a weapon against him? Or has Olori Shadow lost her place in the sun forever, despite her innocence of intent? Only time will tell.